Let's talk about Arizona. They have a school district known as the Peoria Unified School District. And a few years ago, they got a new member on their school board. Her name is Heather Rooks. And I may have talked about her a while back, but it's been a while, so I'm going to talk about this. When she got elected to the board and sworn in, it's January of 2023. And it turns out at their board meetings, there is a section of the meeting where all the board members are allowed to just get a few minutes to say whatever it is they want. It's just a section called board comments. And a lot of times, board members commemorate a holiday or they draw attention to issues faced by the district. They address things that may not have been on the agenda that night. You know what I mean? So what did Heather Rooks do when she entered the board? She decided to use that time to spread the gospel. And so did one of her conservative allies. So like February, just weeks after she was sworn in, she began her remarks by citing Proverbs 22:6, which says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Which, by the way, as I know most of you know, that is a verse that has been used to justify child abuse. But she was just citing that. A couple weeks later, she opened her remarks with a reference to 1 Corinthians. And, you know, this goes on for a little while. And eventually, the board president at the time says, hey, you know, our attorneys have said reciting scripture at board meetings goes against the law. It goes against the Establishment Clause. And they said, you might think this is your First Amendment right to say whatever you want, but that's not how the First Amendment works, because you're not speaking as an individual. You are speaking as a representative of the school board. So First Amendment rules don't apply to you right here. And she's like, oh, that's adorable of you to say. I'm going to keep talking. By May, her colleague, the conservative colleague, Rebecca Hill, she used a Bible verse that has often been interpreted as a threat to non-Christians. It's Matthew chapter 18, verse 6, where she says, if whoever causes one of these little ones to stumble and sin by leading him away from my teaching, it would be better for him to have a large millstone hung around his neck and to be drowned in the depths of the sea. How dare you cause a little one to sin? And then Rooks followed that up with a different Bible verse. This goes on for a while. So again, these two members on this 5-member school board, they're just using their time during board meetings to promote religion. And they're not quoting the Sermon on the Mount, right? Just like the worst parts of the Bible. And so now you have legal groups starting to get interested in this. The group Secular Arizona, their executive director, Gene Castine, actually spoke at one of those school board meetings and just issued an apology to all non-evangelical students and families. She said, I'm doing this as a caring adult in this room, where last month one of the board members called for your eradication because you're not sufficiently Christian. The Freedom from Religion Foundation wrote a letter to the district saying you can't use school board meetings to promote your religion. And they also pointed out they have sued a different school district, Chino Valley in California, for doing something very similar. And that district had to pay legal fees worth over $200,000. So they're warning this district, put a stop to this now, or we'll come after you and we'll probably win that one as well. And they sent a follow-up letter later. So what did Heather Rooks do after all this? She didn't give a shit. She kept reciting Bible verses. And by July, this is where it gets interesting. By July of that year, this is July of 2023, she issued a very different statement. The district had told her to stop. And she said, based upon the district's letter, I will refrain from reciting Bible verses at this time and will have my attorneys at First Liberty Institute handle this matter. So the district's lawyers were saying, don't quote the Bible. And she's like, well, I have lawyers too. And my lawyers say, for now, I will keep quiet, but we're looking into this. Okay. And what else did she do? Right. Her colleague did not make that statement, but also said publicly, I swore to God that I would uphold the Constitution, which includes my First Amendment rights. All right, whatever. So guess what happened by September of that year? Here's the headline from First Liberty. Arizona School Board sued by member for censoring scripture reading at meetings. Yeah, First Liberty, the conservative legal group, they said they're representing Heather Rooks, and they said, we're suing the school board for telling her to shut up. Freedom from Religion Foundation's like, we might sue you if you allow this woman to keep spreading her religion during school board meetings. And she's like, you can't sue the school board. I'm suing the school board first. So this lady on the school board is suing the school board because they said, hey, maybe don't do that so we don't get sued. And then she's like, whatevs, I'm going to sue the board. That's seriously what she did. This is Heather Rooks, by the way. Very persecuted. Yeah, she looks exactly what you think she would look like. So this is what she did. She said she's suing the school board. And in her lawsuit, it was 28 pages, she said she deserved absolute legislative immunity for reciting the Bible at meetings. She wanted the judge to say it's totally fine to recite Bible verses. And then she wanted attorney's fees and damages and money for telling her not to cite the Bible. I also want to point out one other thing here. This is how First Liberty described what she was doing in their press release. Just look at this. This is unbelievable. Heather most certainly can use inspirational quotes from religious, historical, and philosophical sources and figures as a source of personal information, as well and encouragement, okay, they don't do proofreading, to the community at large. They're saying, yeah, she could say whatever she wants to inspire people, except she's not citing Plato. She's not citing all sorts of places. She's quoting the Bible, and she's not doing it to inspire people. She's doing it because she's a religious zealot who thinks you just got to say Jesus 12 times a day, or like, I don't know, someone's going to come in your house and kill you or something like that. I don't know how scary movies work. But like, they're spinning this as she's just trying to inspire everybody. No, she's not. Everyone knows that. But this is the lawsuit that her people filed. Here is the lawsuit. I mean, you could see this lawsuit for yourself. She filed that lawsuit against the Peoria Unified School District. One of the things she says in this lawsuit is that, hey, the U.S. president, a bunch of U.S. officials quote scripture all the time. Therefore, there's nothing wrong with me doing it. That's one of the arguments for lawyers made in that lawsuit. But here's the problem with that. The courts have routinely said there's a big difference between Congress doing this or even a city council allowing an invocation during the invocation part of the meeting versus school boards doing the same thing. And the big difference is that there are kids, theoretically, at school board meetings. Because they may be present, those gatherings are school-sponsored events. And therefore, it's illegal for administrators or employees to push faith on kids, even if, like this lady, they insist they are not trying to proselytize. And obviously, if you want to study scripture in class in an objective way to compare like what Ecclesiastes says compared to other works of literature, that's fine. No one's saying you can't do that. You can even do it in other classes if it's appropriate. That's not what she's doing. One of the other things First Liberty said that I want to point out here, let me make sure I can pull this up. And, oh no, I don't know where it went. That's okay. I will just say it to you. They said, Heather Rooks' use of quotations from a sacred and historical text, the world's best-selling book, to solemnize public occasions and fortify herself to perform her official duties fits comfortably within a long-standing, well-accepted tradition. It's tradition to quote the Bible at school board meetings, you guys, which is bullshit. Besides the fact that anyone who needs to read a Bible verse out loud in public in front of a microphone to do her job well, to me, that says you can't do the job. Like, why can't you just go do it? Reciting Bible verses at school board meetings is not a tradition, much less a long-standing, well-accepted one. They're just pretending that what she does is the same as when the president does it, because there's no legal precedent for someone like her to do what she's doing. So that lawsuit should have been dismissed because the board attorneys and FFRF, they were right all along. Prayers don't belong at school board meetings, and board members cannot use the meetings to push their religion on other people, no matter how innocuous they want you to think it is. Like, remember Joe Kennedy, the football coach who wanted to pray at football games at midfield because he's an attention-grabbing guy that just wants attention? Even in his case, they said, you got to wait till the game is over, till you do your showboaty religious ritual at midfield, because you can't do it when you're doing a school-sponsored activity. This lady is doing her religious thing during a school-sponsored school board meeting. So you can't do it. By the way, if she ever read the damn Bible, she would know there are specific verses about not praying publicly, because that's not what Jesus wants. But whatever, she hasn't read it. So where else am I going with this? So the reason I'm bringing all this up, that lawsuit was filed a year and a half ago, September of 2023. And earlier this year, this is part one of the things I want to share with you. Earlier this year, a judge finally weighed in on the matter. And let me just show you the end of his ruling. The court, therefore, finds none of Rooks' cases persuasive. More importantly, the court also finds that she has failed to meet her burden of establishing a cognizable injury for her post-enforcement challenge, which is legalese for saying, no one stopped you from doing your religion. What are you talking about, lady? And they say without an injury, she doesn't have standing to bring any of her claims. So the judge tossed out her lawsuit. And what the judge basically said is, you're going up against the school board. You're saying the school board discriminated against you. How dare they tell you not to pray? But they're not stopping you. They're warning you. They're saying, we think this is illegal, so you shouldn't do it. You can't sue them for warning you that they think this is illegal. And that's it. You can't sue them over that. So the judge tossed out the case. That means she lost the case. But how did First Liberty treat this? They basically said, you guys, she won. Why did she win? Because First Liberty said, well, I guess you can keep praying until they actually stop you, because then we would have an injury and then we could sue again. So what happened after she lost that lawsuit earlier this year? Heather Rooks still recites Bible verses at board meetings. She's still on the board. Guess what? She's now the board's president. Last year, a conservative slate of candidates basically swept the school board election, so she now has a 3-2 majority, and those three elected her to be their president. So she's now the school board president. As one local media outlet put it, at first her attorney said they would appeal this decision. Now they say she essentially won because the district won't stop her from quoting the Bible. So it will actually, you would have to file a lawsuit now to get her to stop, because nothing else is going to do it. But there is another side to this as well. And this is one of the reasons I really wanted to bring this up this week. She lost the case. That means the school district technically won the case, but that also means they had to defend themselves in court for the past year and a half. And that's not free. And so this is a story that came out this week because reporters filed public records requests to find out how much money did the school board have to spend to fight back against the school board member / president. And guess what they found? Check this out. It's from KJZZ in Phoenix. The lawsuit has cost the district roughly $218,000 in legal fees, according to a public records request. I found one other source that had it at 216, but it's the same thing. This lady has cost her own school district near $250,000. Why? Because they had the audacity to tell her, hey, we think that what you're doing is illegal, so maybe you shouldn't do it because that would be bad. She sued her own school district. The school district had to spend over $200,000 to defend itself, and it won. And she still hasn't stopped, which means if there is a lawsuit over this, they would have to spend even more money defending themselves against all this. Like, imagine how selfish a school board candidate you have to be to not only want to be on the school board, but then try to destroy it from within. Like, this lady does not give a shit about the students in the district. She wants to damage the school district. And now she has a majority of conservatives who are going to help her do it. And that school district has to defend itself against her. It is bonkers that people in this school district, Peoria Unified, voted for someone to sabotage their own community. That is money that is not being spent on the children in that district. And by the way, as I was doing research for this story, I kept getting confused because I'm like, this lawsuit against the district, I keep running up against someone's name who is not Heather Rooks. What is going on here? And the thing is, the school district, with its conservative majority now, is being sued separately by a transgender teacher who specifically cited Heather Rooks and Rebecca Hill, that other Bible quoting person who is no longer on the board, but it doesn't matter because there are other conservatives in her place. That teacher was placed on paid administrative leave. Why? What did this teacher do that was so damning that they had to be put on paid leave? That teacher sent out a staff-wide email letting colleagues know how they could support students on the International Transgender Day of Visibility. That's it. The teacher said, hey, today's Trans Day of Visibility. Here's what you could do to support kids who might have a sticker on. And here's what a local newspaper article about this lawsuit said. According to the lawsuit, Hills and Rooks began a public campaign against that teacher, referred to them as a child groomer, and accused them of sexualizing children. Rooks even disclosed that teacher's home address, and afterwards someone tossed a rock at the teacher's window. Why? Because again, that teacher said, hey, fellow staffers, here's how you can help students who are wearing the Trans Day Visibility sticker. And these two school board members decided to make that teacher's life a living hell. Because that's how much they care about this school district. This is the thing about conservatives. They don't want to improve anything. They want to destroy what everyone else has built. So that district now has to spend even more money defending itself from the actions of its own school board members, not just for the Bible verses, but for harassing one of their own teachers. Like, this is what happens when you install ideologically driven right-wing extremists to run a public school district instead of competent adults, competent teenagers whose main goal is to make sure students actually get a good education. These conservatives don't want that. Like, they've turned this school board in Peoria into a Republican hate rally and church service rolled into one. And by the way, more about Heather Rooks, this lady who's now the president of the school board, besides the prayer debacle. One of the things she did years ago when she first got elected to this board in 2023, they have a motto in the district. Their slogan is every student, every day. Fine, good slogan. But when they said it at the beginning of their meetings, because this district a couple years ago had trans inclusive policies, she would say every student, every day, except the girls, because she's just an asshole like that. She also follows neo-Nazi social media accounts. She whined about a promotional video about the district's history of racial diversity and inclusion because she said, you're making it all about race. There was also social workers in the district got a grant. They got grant money to go to an out-of-state conference to get better at their jobs. And she opposed them being able to do that because that conference had some sessions that helped train social workers on how to be anti-racist. And she's like, anti-racist? I don't want to support that. When they were looking for a new superintendent, Heather Rooks insisted one of the qualifications needs to be love of country, because apparently, I guess if you're liberal, you don't love the country or something. And my favorite version of her being completely useless here, Microsoft offered a free partnership with the district where they would provide like computer science equipment so kids could learn computer science. It would have helped a ton of students. I don't know if they were donating computers or programming material, whatever, but she rejected that program because she said Microsoft supports DEI. Now, here's the thing. All those things I just mentioned that she's on the wrong side of, she was in the minority on the school districts when all that stuff happened. So she was talking into a void. She was outnumbered. Great. None of that stuff ended up happening. But like I said, last year, right-wingers flipped the school board, and now ultra MAGA type conservatives, they are in control of that school district, which means their actions will continue to rack up unnecessary expenses for the district, all because in Peoria, Arizona, the board members' selfishness takes priority over the needs of the children. Oh, what other questions we got here? That story so pisses me off. Keith says, I finished my 2 beers, gonna grab 2 more. Buddy, you're gonna need so much more for stories like this. What else? I'm so goddamn sick of the conservative plague, this conservative plague. Hey, buddy, you're gonna have so many more plagues in the years to come. You could thank RFK for that one. What else we got here? Just scrolling. I hope I don't miss you. Can't they sue her for the money, time, and reputation damage? I don't think that's a thing you could sue for. I'm not a lawyer, but I don't think that's how it works. And again, the thing that voters need to do is not vote for these people, but if they vote these people in, there really isn't much of a case. And plus, who's they? The they is Heather Rooks and her allies at this point. Arizona is already funneling public money into vouchers, so this is a major issue. That's very true. It's bad. Sean is doing drive-by preaching. What I heard in this last hour in this chat room is almost unbelievable. Not a single person here believes in the Lord. I promise he is real, buddy. You went to the wrong YouTube channel. What are you doing here? This is not where that conversation goes. You have failed. Someone sent you a wrong link.